Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 8th regular Board of Education meeting. My name is Anupam Chugsidhu, and I want to welcome everyone for being here on this beautiful fall evening. And I would like my board colleagues to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Good evening, my name's Leonardo Savage, and thank you very much for coming.
Hi, I'm Patty McCoy. Thank you so much for being here. Always excited with all the students.
Hi, it's Patrick Keogh. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thanks for coming out. It's Doug Brooks. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kate Borninski. A shout out to the Bentley crowd tonight. And I also wanted to wish our principals happy National Principals Month.
Thank you. Ms. Merritt, would you like to introduce your staff?
Yes, good evening and welcome. I'd like to begin by introducing my assistant, Ms. Nicole Lauer, as well as Charlie Jones, the man behind the scenes. Both assist us with taking minutes and doing the videos for those that cannot be present today. I would like to ask the remaining staff members to introduce themselves, beginning with Mr. Brandon.
Good evening, Nick Brandon, Executive Director of Communications and Marketing, and it's awesome to see so many students here tonight. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Debbie Piaz. I'm the Chief Finance and Operations Officer. Welcome.
Good evening, Liz Vartanian-Gibbs, Human Resources, and welcome Hoban Hornets.
Good evening, Kurt Tiskowitz, Executive Director of Student Services. It's great to see so many kids here today.
Good evening, Beth Rail, Chief Academic Officer. It's exciting to see everybody, especially our students.
Good evening, Heather Fitzpatrick, President, Education Association.
All right, would Zach please come up? He's going to lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance with Mackenzie. Right here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, we are moving on to Part A of our agenda, the adoption of the agenda, approval of the consent agenda. Action item number 20-10-15. I'm looking for a motion.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion of the adoption of the agenda and approval of the consent agenda, action item 20-10-15.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Motion was made by Member Brooks and seconded by Member McCoy. Any discussion? Yes, Member Berninski?
Just a question about the Security Supervisor position. Is this a new position, or is
This is a retired position. Can't think of the person's last name.
Yes.
Okay.
So one of our security officers from Canton High School retired, and we repurposed that FTE.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, Ms. Merritt, would you please walk us through the consent agenda?
Yes, this evening we are considering the human resources transaction. Since our last time together, we are still hiring champions. Isn't that the best part? Well, a second best part of the night, an equally great part of the night. We always talk about celebrating success as well, but we love bringing in our champions to teach our students. We also have the administrative replacements, as you just talked about, the security supervisor, and we're asking you to consider leaves and resignations. We have the approval of minutes from our regular meeting on September the 24th, as well as the first readings of policies 3120-4120, the employment of personnel. Once again, that's a first reading.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0.
Good evening. First, I would like to introduce you to two awesome teachers we have just hired for our school district. Kathleen Evans, if you could come up, please. Kathleen Evans will serve as our English language learner teacher at East Middle School as well as Pioneer Middle School. She comes to us with a bachelor's degree from the University of San Diego, a master's degree from Eastern Michigan University, as well as 9 years of experience. So welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Ashia Wahab. welcome Ashia. Ashia is going to be teaching English at Salem High School, the home of the Rocks, and she comes to us with a bachelor's degree from Eastern Michigan University. So welcome. We are so happy to have both of you here in Plymouth Canton Community Schools, and we know you will be champions for our kids. So congratulations.
Congratulations, great to have you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, welcome to the district. Congratulations. Welcome to the district.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
So next, I have the honor of introducing you to our new security supervisor. Her name is Jaclyn Grady. She will serve as a security supervisor here in our district. Jaclyn comes to us with a bachelor's degree from Eastern Michigan University, and she is working on her law degree right now at this time. She also has served as a math teacher, a human resources developer, and she's also worked in the Detroit Police Department. We are very fortunate to have her here in our school district to service all of our stakeholders, which would include students, parents, families, and our staff. So welcome.
Good to see you for sure.
I just have to say, in my excitement, the first part of this meeting is just always the best part, including new hires and celebrating success. What a great way to start our meeting.
All right. Welcome to the new staff. All right, we're moving on to Part B, Celebrating Success, and Member Savage has that honor tonight.
Thank you. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Celebrating success this evening will honour Bentley Elementary paraprofessional Bonnie Hasker. Bonnie was nominated for the Mary Beth Carroll Extra Miler Award by Kevin Knierim, a parent at Bentley. Last school year, Kevin's daughter Mackenzie struggled greatly with school drop-offs. Mrs. Hasker noticed this and, like any great educator would, took Mackenzie under her wing. Mrs. Hasker worked every day with love and compassion to help make this process easier for the Knierim family. I would like to invite Bonnie and the Knierim family up to the podium to say a few words. Okay, where's Kevin? All right, Kevin, you say the first few words.
Great. Words can't express how much we appreciate Miss Haskey. You have a champion for kids right here. I'm an assistant principal, and I would steal her in a heartbeat from Miss Douglas. However, I have Mackenzie and another son coming up. So I would love for her to stay at Bentley as long as possible. My wife and I greatly appreciate everything that she's done for us, and we can't thank her enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. On behalf of the Board of Education, I present Bonnie Hasker with the Mary Beth Carroll Extra Miler Award. There you go. Would you like to say a few words?
Just thanks to everybody. I'm honored. I can't believe it.
Okay, congratulations, and can you go up and shake the board members and administrators' hands?
Families, congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
Congratulations. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you for nominating her. She's a great person. How you doing? Thank you for nominating her.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You did a great job with the pledge.
Now, we're still hiring champions.
Slip that right in there. Slip that right in. Good to meet you. You can't even help yourself.
Every opportunity.
Always on the job.
Remember, that's on film.
Congratulations, Bonnie. All right, we're moving on to Part C, and that is board committee reports, starting with the president's report. I just wanted to say that I attended the Screenagers movie night last week, and I don't know if any middle school parent had the opportunity to attend, but it was a very interesting, eye-opening movie, and I just want to applaud the middle school administrators for being very thoughtful about how kids engage with smartphones, and the fact that the team got together at all the middle schools and came up with a really nice plan to engage the parents, to engage the students. Really well done, and I just want to applaud the whole team that put that together. So thank you for doing that. And I also want to acknowledge member Lazarowitz, who attended the Rachel Maurer Invitational at Salem High School on September 28th, and member Brooks, who attended the Eclectic and Electric Show at Salem on October 5th. And I don't know if any other board members attended any other community events, but I would like to acknowledge that. So it's always great when we can get involved. Member Kehoe, were you going to say something?
No, I can't remember which one. I was at the legislators meeting, but I think that was before the previous board meeting. Yeah, so.
All right, next part is the Student Performance and Achievement Committee, and we did not have a meeting last month. It was canceled. We did not have any agenda items. Our next meeting is Wednesday, November 6th at 4:30 p.m., and we invite all of you to join us. Member McQueen for policy update.
Our next meeting will be Tuesday, October 22nd, which is in 2 weeks from tonight. We meet at 5:30 down in the conference room in the lobby. It's very exciting. Everybody is welcome to attend.
And Member Kehoe?
So we had a fantastic Finance and Operations Committee meeting last Thursday, the 3rd, and we discussed the financial results for the financial statements for 2018-2019, which you'll see in the board presentation tonight. And we have another meeting coming up next Thursday at 4:30 p.m. here in this room, and it is not to be missed. Everyone should come.
Thank you. And the next item we have is the Educational Excellence Foundation report. Do we have anyone to? Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. So as most of you know, my name is Gretchen Ward, and I am the Executive Director of the Educational Excellence Foundation. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. Historically, for the last handful of years, we have joined you at your first board meeting of the month to share a little bit about what the EEF is working on, and so that you can have an insight into how we partner and how we support the teachers and students throughout Plymouth Canton. So we look forward to continuing that throughout the 1920 school year. You're going to see some different faces. One of our objectives is so that you can get to know our board members. So sometimes you'll see me, but hopefully you'll be able to see a variety of people who serve the foundation and serve the students throughout Plymouth Canton schools. So 2 updates for tonight I'm excited to share with you. First is probably what we're most known throughout the district is for our classroom grants. We had a summer classroom grant cycle that ended in, applications are due in July and decisions are made by our committee in August. The intent for that is that so that teachers, when they get back to school, can order their supplies and their materials and hit the ground running with these exciting things that they want to provide. So our summer grant cycle was just over $14,000 to fund some pretty cool things. We did cameras for thermal imaging projects, metronomes and tuners for some ensembles at the park, all the way to yoga equipment for our elementary school for social emotional learning and mindfulness. So a variety of grants that we are excited to be responsive to. So I have a short write-up if you guys are interested. You can take one just to see what teachers are doing out there. And so for those who are watching on TV or online, all of our grants can be viewed at our website, which is eef4kids.org. That's eefforkids.org. So we're excited to share that. And secondly, we're really excited to share what I like to think of as our best event of the year. And unfortunately, in fundraising, your best event should be the one that raises the most dollars, but this doesn't raise any money. But I love this event. It's the Showcase of Grants. It's our sixth annual showcase. And what this does is this celebrates the grants that were awarded the prior year. So everyone who was awarded in the grant in the 18-19 school year is invited to attend and to celebrate what they did. We not only want to share what their project and opportunity was, but we want them to talk to community members about the impact it had on their classroom and the learning outcomes that happened because of these grants. And so it's a great way to share with our community members and our stakeholders, and for me, our donors, what their dollars are doing in the classrooms. But even better for P-CCS, it's a way to highlight and celebrate the amazing teachers that we have out there. So I invite everyone at the board and everyone in the community to attend, to join us. This is a really exciting year for us. We've done this is now our 6th year, but this year we're partnering with P-CCS to host this during the community open house on November 7th at Salem High School. So not only do you get to come and see the amazing programs and clubs and activities that P-CCS provides, you get to talk to teachers at all grade levels about what's happening inside the classroom. So you can get the big picture, you can take the tour of the high schools, and then you can come to the showcase and talk to teachers. So I hope you all mark it on your calendars, and I look forward to seeing you all there. We do have formal invitations to come, but for now I printed off some flyers. So if you could take one and save the date on the calendar, we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen. All right, next we have citizens' comments, and we've got quite a few. So I will start with George Belvich. And you'll have 3 minutes, and Nick is going to start the timer.
Thank you. My name is George Belvich. I live at 44526 Clare Boulevard in Plymouth Township. I am the president of Plymouth Canton PFLAG. PFLAG is a worldwide organization of LGBTQ people, family members, and allies. This evening, information will be shared along with experiences and personal stories that I hope will honor our threefold mission of support, education, and advocacy. The context for this evening's remarks will be focused on LGBTQ adolescents, and in particular P-CCS students, K-12, and their families. This evening we're going to ask you to step up your game as a school district as it relates to the protections, safety, and equitable treatment of LGBTQ students. This is what we know, this is what we've learned. There's no appropriate policy in place that specifically addresses the needs and protections for LGBTQ students in our school district. We know from speaking with parents and staff that professional training is woefully inadequate and is hindering administrators and faculty from effectively serving LGBTQ students and their families. We know that the sex education curriculum in the district is antiquated, focused solely on cisgender sex and related health issues, while LGBTQ students, in particular at the park, are left to wonder and find out on their own if what they are feeling, thinking, and doing is okay, let alone safe. We know from national data, the Michigan Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network Survey, or GLSEN, that LGBTQ students are at a higher risk for being threatened, physically assaulted, skipping school, substance abuse, homelessness, and of course suicide. We also know from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, 8.4% of Michigan public school students are sexual minority youth. That's about 36,000 kids statewide, or approximately 512 kids at the park. Last week, I had the privilege of attending an event at Affirmations in Ferndale. Affirmations is an LGBTQ community center Those in attendance were wishing Amy Stevens good luck prior to her date with the Supreme Court, which happens to be today. Amy is a transgender woman. 5 years ago, Amy decided it was time to be her authentic self. She told her employer that she would come to work the next day in the acceptable black skirt and white blouse that all other female employees were asked to wear.
Mr. Belvich, could
I'm
you-
almost done. Amy Stevens had an impeccable employment history, glowing evaluations, accolades from those Amy grieved with and for. She was fired that day. For 5 years, Amy has fought for what I, and most in this room, have been given without asking for: complete equality and protection under the law. At the event in Ferndale, I sat with people who have been fighting most of their lives for dignity, respect, and equality, fighting to be their authentic self. Tonight, I hope the words you hear, the feelings you feel, will lead you to a place of decision-making that truly supports all of our children in becoming their authentic self. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Raphael Mautone. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Could you please correct me?
It's Matone.
Matone? Yep. And again, everyone will have 3 minutes.
Yep, I'll stay to the timer. So thanks for having me today. I'm an output of Plymouth Canton School District. I'll be celebrating my 30th anniversary next year. I have a daughter at Smith Elementary School. I'm excited to see some of the educational items that are coming through the school for the LGBT community, but also agree that there's a lot that needs to be done. I went to Erickson Elementary School at a time where it was at the forefront of everything. We did 45-15. We went to school all year round. We had some of the coolest teachers on the planet, and they saw things in us students that I couldn't even imagine what was going on back then, but put us at the forefront as a school district. I skipped middle school here, but I came back for high school and went to Plymouth-Salem. I had amazing teachers. I was part of Salem Rock Store and had Byron Richardson as one of my favorite teachers that saw something in me again, excuse me, that I couldn't see in myself. The school always felt like it was somewhat a safe place, but it wasn't always, especially back in that time in the late 80s and 90s. But I still felt like no matter where I went in the globe, Plymouth Canton was at the forefront. Graduated from EMU. I was blessed and have worked at Dell Computers, McAfee, FireEye, and just recently left as CIO at Duo. And now I'm CEO and founder of one of the top 10 companies to watch in Detroit. I mention all this not to gloat, but to show you that what Plymouth Canton did for me at a time which I believe was at the forefront of everything, really changed my life. My hope is that you all continue to do that and roll out educational programs and things that will help the LGBT community, teenagers and students, K through 12. This week is National Coming Out Day on October 11th. People find it kind of a mixed bag. I am married. My husband and I have been married for 6 years. We have 2 amazing daughters, and of all the places we could have lived in the world, we decided to come back to Plymouth Canton. I absolutely believe that what you guys have here and what we have here is very unique, and my hope is that you guys continue to push ourselves to the forefront and help our LGBTQ students with training and programming and different ways for teachers to enable them so that we don't see the suicide rate that we see nationally in our school district. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kelly Elizondo.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Elizondo. I live at 7006 Fox Creek Drive, and I have lived in the school district since 1998. My child was a straight A student here in the district until the 8th grade when she began questioning her sexual identity. In 10th grade, she began questioning her gender identity. Research shows that children who fall on the LGBTQ spectrum are at greater risk for bullying, absenteeism, depression, anxiety, lower academic achievement, self-harm, and suicide. Unfortunately, these things do apply to my child. My child's questionings and feelings of not belonging contributed to her missing a quarter of her 9th grade school year and 3/4 of her 10th grade school year. She went from straight A's to failing grades, and worst of all, began having thoughts of suicide and began harming herself with sharp objects. I had her designated as emotionally impaired and had an IEP put in place for her protection. Unfortunately, these things were not enough for my child, and I did have to remove her from the school district for her safety. One of the worst days of my life as a parent was getting a call that I had to come to the school because something had upset my child, and in her resource room, she had gotten a hold of a sharp object, sat in class, and when I got to the school, from elbow to wrist on both arms, there were hundreds of cuts, and my child's arms were swollen. This was heartbreaking for me, and her staff was excellent. I loved the staff in this school district, and it wasn't for lack of them not wanting to help my child. They just didn't have the knowledge to help my child. They really don't have knowledge about gender dysphoria or the particular things that affect the LGBT kids that make them suffer so much. When I talked to her resource room teacher, he really wanted to help, but little things like I was describing her treatment. The gold standard for self-harm is called dialectical behavior therapy, and he'd never heard of it. The social work was a very nice woman, but she was the only social worker at Plymouth High School. In addition to servicing the kids, she had administrative duties to carry out. And I really feel that it doesn't matter how many staff you have if they're not properly trained. So what I'm asking tonight is that the school board, under its authority under Michigan statutes, adopt and implement the State Board of Education guidance on safe and supporting learning environments for LGBTQ students. And the state guidelines that were come up with in 2016, they allow for all staff to be trained. And I truly believe that if there were district-wide policies, all of the students could benefit from the tremendously wonderful school district we have. Thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is Kara Ramsey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kara Marie Ramsey, and I'm here with my life partner of 5 years and my soon-to-be wife. We've now lived here in Plymouth for going on 3 years, and we have absolutely loved every minute of it and adore our community. That's why I'm here tonight. I would like to thank each and every one of you for giving me this personal opportunity to speak before you tonight. On this day, October 8th, 2019, the United States Supreme Court justices just heard 3 cases involving the LGBTQ community, all of which, in my opinion, are Stone Age discrimination. One of those cases involves my good friend, someone you just heard about from George a little bit ago, and my sister-in-life, Amy Stevens, who happens to be transgender and was fired for simply living her truth, as you heard, her authenticity. Providing an income for her and her family, it is the very first case of its kind to ever go before the High Court. And this Friday, October 11th, is our National Coming Out Day. Now, which back in the 60s and 70s was absolutely suicidal for a child like me to ever come out. See, I too was born a transgender female. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a woman like me be in her mid-50s? Well, actually, that is not what I get at all. Sadly enough, all these decades later, I, along with the rest of my LGBTQ family, are still looked at as an abomination to God and the human race while being treated as such. And here are some alarming statistics that, in my opinion, are totally unacceptable, even by a percentage point. And while there is so much more that I could share, I will leave you with this food for thought. If you are a child under the age of 18 and identify as LGBTQ, you are 1.5 to 3 times more likely to attempt suicide than your heterosexual counterpart. More so, those that are born and identify as being transgender are, get a load of this, 43% more likely to attempt suicide if they are shunned by society. Now that includes their classmates, teachers, parents, and anyone that has anything to do with that child's life. Trust me, I know of what I speak. I am a survivor of several suicide attempts myself. So I ask you, no, I implore you, is this what we want for our children here in Plymouth Canton? I would like to think not. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Tina Jones.
Good evening. So my name is Tina Jones. I teach at Workman Elementary, and I have 2 students in the district that have gone through since kindergarten, and now they're 8th and 9th grade. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I come tonight as both a teacher and a parent. In particular, I want to talk about how LGBTQ issues affect the elementary community, because that's where I teach. So my story starts with my daughter in 2nd grade. She had this friend, a little girl who was her best friend since kindergarten, and every day she'd come home and tell me tons of stories about her best friend. And then in 2nd grade, she started talking about a little boy who had similar characteristics to her other friend, and I just assumed it was a student who had moved into our district. It wasn't until one day I was in the staff room and my daughter's teacher, who is my colleague, was talking about a student who, with the loving support of her parents, was transitioning from female to male in 2nd grade. And it dawned on me, this is the same friend. And it wasn't a new student, it was the same student. And I suddenly came to realize that if I hadn't known that, I wouldn't have understood how to help my daughter navigate this new experience and to answer her questions that she had. So my colleague had been talking to all of us as a staff saying, how do I help my 2nd graders understand what's going on and be able to accept it and accept the student? So we kind of muddled through it together as parents and as teachers. As my daughter moved on to middle school, I began hearing her discuss and grapple with issues of gender identity, and I was confused because I was archaic, and I thought, what do you mean? There's only male and female. And she became my teacher and instructed me about what modern perceptions of gender are, and I started to do some research so that I could better support her and better inform myself and arm myself with tools to help her and her friends navigate what's already a very complicated time in their life. As a teacher, I've had very little to no training about how to handle such emotionally charged issues. I've just completed 2 wonderful days of restorative practices training, and I know, or I can see how that kind of training would benefit if we had a district-wide dialogue and receive some quality training about how to handle these kinds of issues in the classroom. Since we are leaders of the students, we have not yet been equipped to help students in this way. So please consider how the district can take an active role. We've done so much with diversity training and with culturally proficient practices and now restorative practices that have made us a leader in our state and in the nation. I know it can be difficult for schools and staff and even board members to grapple with these emotionally charged issues that are have religious and cultural ramifications, but it's time to have those conversations because, as your sign over there says, it's all for the children, and they are looking for us to be their allies, every single one of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jaclyn Turner.
Hello, my name is Jaclyn Leanna Turner. I reside at 13923 Jackson Drive in Plymouth, Michigan, right here. Love this town. I'm actually up here because I am a parent to a transgender daughter, a partner to a transgender wife, and also a school bus driver for Plymouth Canton. And this is my first year of being a bus driver here in Plymouth Canton, so I get to see firsthand how these kids behave and act on the school bus. And they knew from the very beginning, first day, when they boarded my bus, that I am accepting, the bus is accepting and inclusive and diversive, and that I will not tolerate any bullying or anything of that nature on the school bus. However, even with putting my rules in place on the school bus, there is talk. I see these kids getting on the bus day in and day out that are dealing with not only their own school issues at home, but when they're LGBTQ, they're at much higher risk for suicide and just feeling alone. And I never want them to feel that way on the bus. And a lot of the kids have told me that yes, there is acceptance, but there's not enough being done in the school district to where the people that do feel transgender or gay or lesbian are scared. Scared to come out to their parents. And you know, I know firsthand with being a bus driver in another district where love and acceptance has prevailed, especially with my daughter who is transgender. With that being said, the school has been inclusive with her name and her gender, and trying to better themselves in supporting not only my daughter but others that are from the LGBT community, trying to learn and wanting to learn more about, you know, what it's like to be LGBT. With that being said, I too am also transgender, and again, this is why I think it's so important to have support and love in place, and education for the LGBT community, because with love and support, we can help these kids that are suicidal and feeling afraid and scared to come out to be able to be themselves and be inclusive with their friends and do things within the school community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Lori Myers? Or Myers? Myers? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Lori Mayers. I live in Plymouth. My two children attended Byrd, Miller, West, East, and Salem high schools. I helped found the Plymouth Canton PFLAG chapter 5 years ago because I want this community to become a place where LGBTQ people, like my son, are accepted, where they can go to school without being bullied, where they can live and work without fear of discrimination. Last year, PFLAG donated more than 100 books to our elementary and middle schools. We shared with them, when we donated them, many schools gave us an opportunity to meet with their faculties. We shared with them some of the data that George Belvich and Kelly Elizondo just gave you. After we met with the teachers, we surveyed them. We got 54 responses from 12 schools. 3/4 of them wanted the school district to, quote, provide training specifically addressing anti-gay name-calling and LGBTQ topics in school. Here are just 2 of their comments. All I know is that I hear gay used in a negative context quite often in my building. and from another teacher, if we are going to be an inclusive district, it is past time for P-CCS to take an active role in providing training and other support for our community. I feel like our district is ignoring LGBTQ issues. So here are 3 concrete things that I, as a mother and a PFLAG member, ask the school board to commit to doing this academic year. Number 1, provide training for teachers, administrators, and staff on supporting queer students and their families. There are many such resources available. For example, the Michigan Department of Education offered teacher training sessions last summer in Ann Arbor and plans to offer them again at minimal expense. Number 2, develop a consistent written protocol for schools in how to deal with transgender students. Right now, procedures are completely ad hoc, and parents are at the mercy of individual principals as to how their child is treated and addressed. The district needs to provide consistent guidance. In 2016, the MDE developed comprehensive, thoughtful guidelines for schools to support transgender students. These are the ones that Kelly just referred to. Number 3, incorporate LGBTQ people and perspectives into relevant, age-appropriate lessons in literature, math, science, history, health. Make sex education medically accurate and inclusive of gay and trans people, including the latest information on HIV, AIDS prevention and treatment. STD rates are skyrocketing among young people. We cannot afford to risk our kids' health on abstinence-only education. There's much more I could say, but I leave you with this. Some of you, I'm gonna wait till he buzzes. Some of you have spoken to us and privately expressed your support for gay and trans children. I thank you for that, but I respectfully tell you today that your private support is not enough. I beg you, as our elected representatives, to take action to protect our children and all children at school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Catherine Butler. Is Catherine?
Sorry, so this is a letter from a former P-CCS student. She couldn't be here. This is from Katie Butler. She said, "Dear President Chu and Superintendent Merritt, I went to middle school at P-CCS. When I was in 7th grade, I came out as gay, and I was bullied. The people I thought were my friends didn't want to talk to me anymore. They spread rumors that I was trying to have sex with the person I thought was my best friend. I didn't even know what sex was in the 7th grade, but let me tell you, I had questions about it. One day, some guys from 8th grade slammed my hand in my locker and broke my finger. They ran away laughing, and I just stood there in tears. I not only felt alone, I was alone, because my teachers didn't know how to talk to me, and I didn't know if it was safe to talk to them. I was in 7th grade almost 10 years ago, and our teachers and administrators still don't have any training to teach them how to talk to their students about LGBTQ issues. Our students need resources, they need mentors, and they need to see that they are welcomed, accepted, and celebrated. Policy is critical, and having a GSA is an enormous step in the right direction. But that can't be the end. LGBTQ people and topics need to be included in curricula in subjects. We need to be visible in English, math, and especially sex ed. LGBTQ students have questions and they need answers in order to be safe. I was bullied so badly that I left P-CCS and I went to a private school. There I felt accepted and I was able to live up to my full potential because I had teachers I could talk to, and I saw myself in my books, my curriculum, and my community. I went on to speak out nationally about LGBTQ bullying. I petitioned the Motion Picture Association of America to change the rating of the film Bully from R to PG-13. And as a result, over 6 million people saw the film and started conversations across the country about bullying. I worked with Congressman Honda on 2 national anti-bullying legislative agendas that were both LGBTQ inclusive. And still, P-CCS hasn't changed their policy on LGBTQ trainings for teachers. But do you know what has changed? They're asking for it. I know P-CCS teachers want LGBTQ inclusive training. Bus drivers are asking how to talk to their queer students, and math teachers are trying to figure out how to add LGBTQ visibility into their curriculum. As school board president and superintendent, it is your job to give them that training. It is your job to make all students safe, accepted, and give them the opportunity to reach their full potential at P-CCS. No one was there for me when I was in 7th grade, but now you have the chance to be there for thousands of students right now. Thank you for listening. Katie Butler.
Thank you. And the last one I have is Jody Bukowski.
I'm going to read a letter from Jody, who could not be here tonight. Good evening. My name is Jody Bukowski, and I have 2 children that currently attend PSEP. I know that there will be many people speaking to you tonight, but I wanted to share our personal experience of how one transgender boy experienced middle school in the Plymouth Canton School District. My youngest son transitioned while he was in middle school. Middle school is hard enough for most kids, but for him it was practically unbearable. By students, he was threatened in multiple disgusting, vile ways. From the administration, he heard comments such as, "You picked a bad time to do this, and you're asking for it by being so out." One counselor told me early on that if my son didn't dress the way he did, by wearing a rainbow bow tie, the people wouldn't harass him. The clear solution was that if he pretended to be something he wasn't, it would not only make his life easier, but would also create less of a problem for the administration to deal with. What an amazingly awful lesson to teach our children. During his time there were numerous incidents that required intervention. The administration had multiple opportunities to advocate and protect him, yet they chose not to. Threats to his physical and mental safety were dismissed over and over and over again. I believe the students at his school were emboldened to act the way they did because they knew there would be no consequences for their actions. Why should the students treat him with respect when the administration clearly did not? We were fortunate that in his 8th grade year, he was assigned a new counselor, and there was also an administration change, both of which improved things for him significantly. There were still threats against my son, but they were taken more seriously than before. The situation wasn't perfect, but it was improved. The new staff members were strong allies for him in ways that he had never experienced before. I want to emphasize that the majority of his teachers were respectful and supportive. My son is one of the strongest people I've ever known. Even so, he was hospitalized 3 times in the last half of 8th grade for major depressive episodes. The blame does not rest solely on his school environment, but it was a huge contributing factor. The daily emotional and physical abuse that he experienced at school would take a toll on anyone. But a transgender 13-year-old experiencing it, that was unimaginably hard. My request for the board tonight is to encourage staff to support their LGBTQ students in simple, straightforward ways, like using their preferred pronouns. Insist that the school administration take threats against LGBTQ students seriously. Actually act on the zero-tolerance bullying policy this district supposedly has. Listen to these children. It could literally be a life or death situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens' comments cards? None? Okay. I just wanted to remind everyone this is an opportunity for citizens to talk and the board members to listen. Thank you. All right, we are moving to letter E, administrative reports and presentations, and up first is the superintendent's report.
All right, we always welcome and love an opportunity to promote our amazing students and our student musicians, our singers that are in the district. So I just want to invite all, we have a full house here, to come out for the annual fall concert of PCEP Choirs and Orchestra. That will take place on Wednesday, October the 15th at 7 p.m. It will be an evening of wonderful music by both groups. Tickets are available. They're for a suggested donation of $5. So once again, please come out and hear our talented students perform the sweet sounds of fall. Another invitation for you will take place this week. That will be the first Coffee with Monica of the school year. That will be Thursday, October the 10th, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. You know we are celebrating our 100 years of P-CCS. So in honor of that, this coffee will take place at the Canton Historical Society and Museum. That is 1022 South Canton Road. Refreshments will be provided by our district partner, Sweetwaters of Canton, and the event is open to the entire PCCS community, so please come out and join us. Also this evening, I would just like to give a shout out. I know that Trustee Borninski did already, to our amazing principals. This is National Principals Month. That is a month-long event that occurs every October, and this is really an opportunity to put a spotlight on our school leaders. They have an endless commitment to the success of all students, and so we want to recognize them and applaud them for all they do to support our teachers and our support staff, so that they are then in turn able to support our students. So when you see a principal, congratulate and recognize and honor a principal, because we appreciate all the work they do. They are champions for our students. So with that, I'm going to be quiet so we can hear from one of our amazing principals and staff at Hoban Elementary.
So I want to introduce to you Maureen Malloy, who will actually introduce our Hoban staff. And Maureen is our Director of Elementary Education.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the families of Hoban Elementary for bringing your children out and sharing the joy of Hoban School with us tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce to the Board of Education Principal Lisa Johnston and her team to share with you some great highlights about Hoban School.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Johnston. I'm the principal at Hoban Elementary, and we are delighted to be here with you this evening. And before we begin, we're going to ask, you're going to notice that there are many students with these red hats on, and these are members of our swarm team, and we'll be talking a little bit more about what that means in just a little bit. But they have a treat that they would like to share with you. So at this time, boys and girls, you may go ahead.
Thank you so much, honey.
I want the hat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, wait till they're done passing out the popcorn.
And one more. Thank you so much, sweetie. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, the first thing we'd like to do is introduce another spectacular Hoban student. So go ahead and say your name.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm a 5th grader in Mrs. Volk's class at Hoban. I've put together this video introducing you to my school. Enjoy the show.
Hence the popcorn. Thank you, Ryan. At this time, I want to share with you our mission at Hoban School. At Hoban School, it's our job to prepare our students for their future as productive, responsible citizens in a global society. Our Hoban School community provides a peaceful, diverse, and challenging learning environment for all students. when you come out to Hoban School, you will see that our students and staff are working together to strive for a better Hive. And you will see that by our students and staff who are demonstrating safe, respectful, and responsible behaviors. At Hoban School, we believe that it is very important that we work together as a community to help one another, that we own our choices. Each and every day we come to school being the best versions of ourselves, and we show that we are enthusiastic about learning, and that when things get hard, we do not give up.
Hi, I'm Kara Thompson. I'm third grade teacher at Hoban. One of the big integral parts of this year's school improvement plan is focusing on being a culturally responsive teacher and how to expand our practices. We're really working on restorative practices, which is using proactive circles to get to know each other, to build community, to make sure that all of the kids have a voice in our room and everyone feels like they're a part of that engagement or engaging environment. And then we also, when there is an issue, when there is a problem, we use circles to have growth-focused goals for our students to find ways to come back together to take ownership of our actions and improve the community that we're a part of. We also this year have a whole group book study. It's called Help for Billy, and while the focus of it is on trauma, the whole book is really full of best practices, and we come together during PLCs to talk about ways that we can bring all the practice in the book into our day-to-day teaching. This year, thank you. What's the last one? We are also, as we kind of learn more about culturally responsive practices, we're doing an inside-outside approach. So learning about who you are, what cultures you have, what values you have, what expectations you hold, and then how you're bringing that into your workplace, how you're bringing it into the classroom, and what that means for the students. We're also working on positive relationships that are authentic for all stakeholders by making sure we have positive family relationships, making sure all the work we're providing is meaningful and is relevant, and having differentiated goals based on NWEA.
Hi, I am Kate McAllister. I'm one of the literacy interventionists at Hoban. And we use the MTSS framework at Hoban. It's really a way for us to get to know our learners. It's a way for us to study, to be students of our students so we can meet them where they are and take them where they need to go. There's 3 tiers to the MTSS, to the multi-tiered support system of support. Tier 1 is all classroom, and that's always evolving, and we're always working on strengthening that. The teachers are using the new workshop models that have been rolled out. They're using their colleagues' PLC and building PLCs to talk about what's going well and what they need to work on. And then they're also bringing in the district instructional coaches when they need them. And then Tier 2 consists of myself, the literacy interventionist, also the EL teacher, our social emotional teacher, the EL working cohesively with the classroom to support students. And then the Tier 3 support is more intensive intervention and supports to help a learner who are working their way through the tiers.
Get through all these bees. Hornets, sorry. Hi, I'm Amy Volek. I teach 5th grade. And as Kate talked about the 3 tiers, I'm going to highlight just really Tier 1. And that's, it's really, Tier 1 is, you probably know, instruction that provides high quality, differentiated, and culturally responsive instruction to all students. One way our district right now is supporting Tier 1 is through the ELA program. So we are highlighting Words Their Way and then, of course, reading and writing workshops. So the Words Their Way program it's a developmental program that supports all students at their individual spelling stages. And then both our reading and writing curriculums are designed to meet individual needs as well. In both Words Their Way and the workshop models, the needs are determined through conferencing that the teachers do, small group instruction, and individualized and common assessments.
Hi, I'm Erin Wenrick, and I'm the Student Support Coordinator at Hoban.
proud to be. We're here to talk about school improvements. So this is the third portion. We talked MTSS, we've talked CPI, and I get the privilege to talk about character education. So this is a continuous learning process where we are always working at our school to practice safe, responsible, respectful behavior, and the whys behind it. So important. We have 2 teams at Hoban that work on this character ed. We have a teacher staff team. We also have a student team. We have 18 students on our SWARM team. SWARM stands for students with a real, we'll get to, yeah, I'm students with a real message. So I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but they are a part of our character ed team, our stakeholders, and a very important part. Click. All right, so you're probably wondering, well, how do we get this great character education out to the people? Well, we have a couple different strategies. One is definitely teaching expectations. We want to make sure all expectations are known to our families, our students, and our staff. So we have a Hoban Elementary Handbook where we have all of what we want, what we feel is important for students and families to know. We also have expectation stations where at the first week of school, we taught every single classroom in the 5 hot spots of Hoban, the playground where we have a large conglomerate of people, hallways, large conglomerate of people, and cafeteria. We taught specific skills of what we expected to have a calm body, calm voice, and a safe environment for all. We also have ticket tubs, positive behavior. Our students, as well as our staff, pass out respect tickets, and then every Friday we have drawings per class. They love that. And then we also have Word of the Month. Our Word of the Month for September was respect, and this month, October, is humility. And I did not practice that. So really, we want them to say it, know it, and most importantly, show it. Next slide. Oh. Me? Okay, and then as I mentioned, the SWARM team, this is part of our character ed. We have 18 members, all in grades 2nd through 5th. Our youngest member, Harper, yeah, we have a 2nd grader here. Harper is our youngest, and we go all the way up to 5th grade. They have to fill out an application. They have to have 2 letters of recommendation from staff at Hoban in order to participate in this. So. Great character references they have. We also have 83 members on our safety team. Those are all 4th and 5th graders supporting our little people. And again, those expectations are taught to our safeties so that we have a safe, respectful environment.
It's me again. Our families, this is the best slide to share because it's all about these kids and the wonderful families that bring these children to us every day. We have a very, very strong PTO who's very responsive to teacher needs and are really dedicated to supporting teaching and learning at Hoban. They go out of their way to make us feel supported and valued. They're amazing, and they're very welcoming to everybody. Their meetings are always, there's an agenda before and notes after. Everyone's invited to them. So it's very inclusive. Lisa has been doing parent pop-ins, so more informal meetings with parents so they can come in and have their voice heard. We are a Title I building, so we have had some Title I parent meetings. I do run a Title I summer reading program, so we kick that off in June with a meeting, and then I meet with some readers in July and August over the summer as a way to keep tabs on them and make sure they're reading. So that's more ways that we're connecting with our families year-round. Through the Plymouth Art Council, we have quite a few art volunteers that are bringing art into the classrooms, and they have been trained by a parent volunteer on what to do. We have on a daily we have media center helpers and classroom helpers come into the classrooms, and then some dedicated parents popping popcorns on Fridays. That raises little extra funds for each teacher who need to buy some things for their classrooms. And then last but not least, our end of the year big blowout is the fun fair, which is put on entirely by parents, and it really is a wonderful night to see the community come together. There's teachers, families, grandmas, grandpas, everyone shows up for the fun fair. So we're very, very fortunate to have amazing families that we work with at Hoban School.
And our final slide, not only do we look forward to improving all of our connections with our families and our community out there at Hoban. But we're also looking forward to our continued work with Ginny Winters, who is the Wayne County RISA's equity consultant, and she works with us on our CPI focus. And also the importance and the power of student-led groups, and under the lens of our character education program. And then also continuing to strengthen our Tier 1 instruction with the support of the district's literacy coaches.
So at this time, we'd like to invite you, if you have any questions or comments, feel free.
Well, first of all, thank you to everyone, especially the kids, for being part of this presentation. So a big round of applause to you all. And would you mind if we went around with some questions?
No, not at all.
No? Okay. Colleagues? Member Berninsky?
I was wondering about the proactive circles. Could you describe them?
Absolutely. So with that restorative practices book that was up there, that is a book that all teachers have in their hands and in their classrooms. And one type of circle is a proactive circle. And it's a way to allow the community to be strengthened within the classroom. So teachers use those proactive circles in a way to build that community. Again, it's just like what it says. It's a proactive way to make everybody feel included, and that they have a voice, and that they can be heard, that they belong in this environment. And so it's just a strategy that teachers use to build community within their individual classrooms.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other members? Member?
I have more, but
Okay. Well, let's take turns.
Okay.
Member Kehoe?
So I want to thank everybody for coming in, and I also appreciate the fact that you involved so much of your staff here this evening, because it really helps to drive the message home, and that there's a cohesiveness in the programs that you're offering. So thank you for that.
Pleasure.
Before I go back to Member Berninsky? Yes, Member Savage?
I have a question.
Sure.
The Hoban Elementary Expectations Handbook, is this just handed out, or do you go over it with the kids?
Great question. So, Mrs. Bunrick and I, one of our main jobs of our student support coordinator is to support our students. And so with that came on that she's in charge of really beefing up that character education program. And so when she started with us a year ago, that was one of our first things. I said, we need to bring this Hoban handbook back. It had been something that was put in place years ago. And so we were able to kind of draft a copy. So we got voice and perspective from teachers throughout last year. We were, meeting with families. We kind of put parapros, all of our Hoban staff. And so we had it in draft formation basically all last year. So over the summer, Mrs. Bunrick and I worked together to actually put it in print. And through that process, we decided how is the best way to get this out into all of the hands of students and families. And so the night of open house and then the first week of school, we were able to make copies of the handbook and pass it out to every family. And we also took feedback from other expectation handbooks that are currently put in place through other elementaries. And one thing that I love that I saw from Bird School is they have a page that you said, please return back to school, stating that, yes, you've reviewed the handbook with your child. And so that is a way for us to maintain, we do have record that people are reading it. We've asked classroom teachers to keep a checklist of, who hasn't turned it in yet and who needs to. We have copies in the front office. And so that is a way that we help to ensure that families are reading it, understanding it, and asking questions if they have that.
Okay. Is it revised?
That's a great question. So it is revisable. So this current school year, we have it in print. And and through that part of the Hoban handbook, it has been, we've shared that message that this is our draft this year. And we invite families through the parent pop-ins as I'm hosting and through our PTO meetings and through those other community outreach programs to gather that feedback and input so that we as a school community, this is draft one. This is the 1920 school year copy. So I that is my role, and in my job as as we go through the school year, to get feedback from the community. What do you like about it? What do you think we need to change? And make a 2020-21 version for next year.
Great, thank you.
Member McCoy?
It was a great presentation. I really, like Member Kehoe, appreciate all the staff and the students and the parents for bringing their kids out tonight.
Absolutely.
Because that is not easy on a school night with all the other things that you have to do. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Borninski?
So first of all, I want to give Hoban a shout out also, because I didn't. I gave Bentley a shout out at the beginning of the meeting, and I didn't give one to you. And it's fabulous that you're all here tonight. So I was wondering about the parent pop-ins. How do those differ from just what we would consider a normal parent meeting at school, and about how many people do you get?
So the parent pop-ins evolved this year based on some feedback that I had last year. So last year and the years prior, I had hosted parent coffees, and we hosted those during the day, in the morning, and attendance was dwindling. And I noticed that our Hoban PTO meetings that are taking place in the evening allow for more opportunity for people to be a part of it. And so this year, this is my first year hosting parent pop-ins. So I'm going to continue gathering feedback and working with the community to determine the best time that we can have these informal meetings to be able to have conversations with parents and families about what's working for their child, what they'd like to see different, and what they'd like to see maybe changed.
Thank you.
Member Kehoe?
Following up on Leonardo's great question about the handbook, do you talk about restorative practices in there?
Yes.
Okay, because that's one of the areas that I think is really hard for a lot of parents, that they are not exposed to this, and it's a different mechanism, and in being able to educate them about that process and how it works. It's not about crime and punishment. It's a very different approach to how to solve things. I think is really powerful.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Do you have one more? Member Berninski?
Just for Amy Volek. Are you going to be doing your TED Talks this year?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, please let us know.
I will.
They were fabulous
And
last year.
This year, not just my class, but all 3 classes will be presenting TED Talks.
Awesome.
So 75 fifth graders will be involved.
Okay.
You are all welcome to join us.
So I just want to say, as far as school improvement, you truly model that continuous improvement model. So as I hear you taking all the feedback from parents, from students, from your staff, it's really nice to hear that you're just the ongoing feedback and the iterative work that you're doing in that building just to make it better every time. So thank you for highlighting that. And I have a question for Ryan. Come on out. Did you create that video?
Yes.
So I want to say,
of Mrs. Renrick.
beautifully done. Well
Thank
done.
you.
So I just spent 2 days in Ohio at a national conference. It was called Future Ready. All these principals came from all over the country, and they shared videos like that, but yours was 10 times better.
Thank you. Thank you.
So really well done. Thank you to everyone, and we appreciate the update. Oh, and thank you for the treats.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you
absolutely.
for the popcorn.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up, we have the first reading of the resolution to consider approval of resolution to high school science course pathway change. And this was actually discussed in SPA in September. And you've had a chance to read it. Beth, would you like to give it a little update?
And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to introduce Dr. Deirdre Brady, our Director of Curriculum and Professional Development, who's going to talk a little bit more about the process and the rationale behind this request.
Thank you.
I'm following children who brought food. So
And an
I-
awesome video.
and a video. It's just, thank you. It's just me. Sorry, it might be disappointing. So, our current course pathway that we have at high school, which I've spoken to the board several times before about us re-examining our science curriculum along with many other pieces. And so at our high school level, the course pathway that we currently have has been in place for, from what I can tell, at least about 25 years. And so at the time that it was developed, it made sense for the curriculum at that time. But as the board knows, curriculum changes often, and the current way that the NGSS aligned state standards are doesn't necessarily match what we need. So our first course that students are required to take, it is a graduation requirement, is a geophysical science course. And the way the standards are now, we cannot get all of our standards that we need to do into the 3 years that are required by the state of Michigan. So the geophysical science course teaches some of the physical standards, but not all of them. So in order for our students to be able to master all of the standards, they would need to take 4 years of science. And that would close some pathways for students. We want to make sure that students have lots of opportunities to be able to do other classes, other science classes, if they would like to. So in order for us to rearrange and get all of those standards into 3 years, we would like to change the first course so that it has all of the physical standards instead of only the geophysical. So there's many steps that we need to take, and tonight is the first step. The first step, because it states that the geophysical science course is a required course, that course no longer fits the standards. And so the first step is to ask the board, what I'm here for tonight, to remove that as a graduation requirement. Because if that occurs, then I can move forward with my teams to be able to say, what are the next steps to make sure the standards are aligned the way we need them to. We want to have students follow the 3 years and get their science in so they have opportunities to take other science courses. There are other places where they do the physical science all in that first year, and there's lots of research behind what comes from that. Students take more higher level math and science courses. I want that for our students. I know that's what we want. The course also is aligned with Algebra 1, which is what many students have either taken as 8th graders or they're taking concurrently as freshmen. And so it allows the practical application of algebra along with their science course, which research shows is the best way to learn science. It's a hands-on application-based approach. Students would still have an opportunity to take physics later on in their course pathway, but we want to make sure that the first course is a hands-on approach to physical science. So that's what the first read is for tonight.
Questions?
You know,
Member Kehoe? Go ahead.
so I guess this seems a little bit backwards to us, or to me, I'm sorry. I like the approach, but I would love to see us have the new program in place before we remove the requirements for the existing standard.
So those
why
are
are we doing the...
So we've had conversations as to what that's going to be, but if the board, so what I wouldn't want to do is to put in an exorbitant amount of time, because curriculum work does take an exorbitant amount of time. And what I would hate to do is to ask the teachers and my team, and the board does not want to go down that pathway. That would be unfortunate. So I want to be able to see if the board is supportive of removing the geophysical in order for me to go ahead and then bring to you what that would look like. So in short, all of the physical science standards would be in that first year. So in concept, it's built out and I know where it's going to be, but I don't have any of the Atlas work, for example, done because I wouldn't want to put the time that it would take into that if the board is not sure that that's the right way to go.
Sure, okay, so from my perspective, I'd rather not remove a requirement for something on something that might happen. I'd rather see us have a clear definition. If you're looking for guidance and support from the board about this approach, I'd be more than happy to give that, but I wouldn't be willing to remove this requirement without a new plan that's in place.
Okay, so may I ask a question?
Sure, of course. Please,
So,
start conversation.
So I don't have that all completely in writing. I have some pieces in writing that I talked to SPA about. So just from my understanding, you would want the concept brought, or you would want all of that curriculum work to be done, because those are two different things.
Sure, like, I guess from my, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, fellow board members and yourself, is that when we bring new programs forward, they go through the vetting and the validation process in SPA, and then they come forward and we're going to change this program to this program, and it's all done in one space. The new program is clearly identified and defined. It's all been ready and rolled out, and it's been vetted through the SPA process. I've never seen a situation, at least that I recall, where we've said we're not going to do something and we might do something later.
So this is a little bit different, though. So this is not the replacement of a course that isn't specific inside of graduation requirements. Typically, most of our graduation requirements follow what the state expectations are, and I'm not asking you to change anything that the state requirement is. But Plymouth Canton has a unique circumstance that is not what other schools that I know of are doing, which is the geophysical science requirement. So I'm not asking to change anything that the state expects. This is a Plymouth Canton requirement, and it's unique to Plymouth Canton, and it kind of keeps me boxed in a little bit into what that first course needs to be. So when other courses have been brought to you, it didn't have this very specific graduation requirement that unfortunately this course has a very, very specific graduation requirement. Most things I brought to you, or other things that have been brought that are course changes, don't have that kind of requirement.
Sure. So what's the timing that you'd have the new course developed?
As soon as you tell me that this is something that we can do, is take the requirement off, I will bring through SPA, the next SPA meeting, I will bring what that new course would look like for the board to approve, for us to work on it the rest of the school year. Ideally, maybe we can have it ready for next fall to be able to roll out for the new freshmen entering. It depends on the timing and how much we can get done.
Yeah, I guess, again, my struggle with this is that without a certain date, I wouldn't want to adjust our requirements and curriculum.
The graduation requirements wouldn't start until that new course rolls out. So let's say that we don't have it prepared for this coming fall, then that wouldn't be in place for the incoming freshmen. It would be in place when the new course goes through the course catalog and is ready for students to be able to take.
Is that what the resolution says?
No.
Yep, I know. I'm looking at it on my screen.
So
as
while you
well,
look
but-
at that, can I get to Member Berninski's
please.
question? Okay.
Please.
So, right now we have a situation with the students in the International Baccalaureate program that they're, because of our graduation requirement, not the state or IB, they have to take geophysical science, but they don't have room for it in their schedules.
Correct.
So I don't have a problem removing the graduation requirement, because I think that helps out those families. Right now, a lot of them are paying for geophysical science, either for summer school or an online program, and that's a burden on parents.
That is correct.
I guess my concern is that if we then create a new course that's going to be a P-CCS graduation requirement, and maybe a state one, I don't know what it's going to look like, that burden's still going to be on those parents.
So I would ask that the board goes to what the state requirement is, which is 3 years of science. That would be
okay.
What we would
So
ask.
that would
Instead of
be
replacing it as a graduation requirement, I'm asking
okay.
for step.
It wouldn't be
just
specific to that course. It would just be
Correct.
3 years of science.
Correct. That opens the pathway for the IB students, which is currently a burden for them. That would remove that, and would also allow students to take how it's written. It says they have to take in it. It's the freshman course, and so that kind of also pigeonholes us into making sure that freshmen have that course. So the science course pathway historically is the way that it is because it's alphabetical. Truly, that's the way that it is. So biology comes first because it starts with B. That truly is what happened way back, like in the 50s. So from a course pathway standpoint, it doesn't have to be in a certain particular order, and the state does not require us to do that in a particular order. They require 3 years, and so ours looks a little different because of our graduation requirement, which keeps us boxed in a little bit.
So following up on that, if we did remove the graduation requirement, how does that affect our current students for this year?
So that depends on when we choose to roll it out. So my intent was to remove that at the time that we roll the new course out. And my hope would be that we can roll it out next fall. So that would be the incoming freshmen, so that those changes occur at the same time.
Right, but the way this is written right now, it just removes it immediately.
Right.
It doesn't remove this next fall. It doesn't remove it when the course comes out, and it doesn't substitute it with a process that aligns to the state standards of 3 years of science. I mean, I'd be fine with a I personally would be fine with a resolution that said we're changing this to remove geophys as a specific requirement, and that you just have to have 3 years.
So in looking at what's written, outlined the 4 steps so that you could see the 4 steps. I'm not asking for all of those 4 steps this evening. So if you look, the resolution asks that bottom paragraph, the board to remove the graduation requirement for geophysical science. So I know there's 4 steps, so that the board, transparency, the board understood what the next steps would be. But for this resolution, it's just the graduation requirement component.
Right, but
The question is, does that mean our students this year will not have that graduation requirement?
No, they're already in courses and came in
that's
with
what I
that
was trying
requirement.
to get
Mhm.
to.
And before we move on, can we get to the side? Member
So
McQueen?
I think that the question, though, is that it appears, and I would see parents saying, you've removed it as a graduation requirement. My child doesn't need to take it. And so I think that the concern is that while we would all like to see us just be aligned with the state and the NGSS, because that's what we should really be doing with our curriculum, we'd like maybe something a little more specific to, we are going to remove this when there is a new course, and this is for students going forward.
Okay.
So that there's no nebulous, the kids
Okay.
that are already in school right now, did they need it?
And given what the state standard is, and given the discussion they've had, I'd be fine even removing this completely and substituting with 3 years of science.
Yeah. Yeah, and just say we're gonna
I mean,
follow
because
the state
it doesn't, you don't
standards.
have to have the new course in place before we change the board policy that says
We
3
don't.
years
That's correct.
of science. We could replace that now, and that would be meeting the state's mandated requirement, and everything would work. Now, I think that kids that are a month into geophys right now are going to be pissed.
And parents who paid for the class this summer.
So
But that's the nature of timing.
Well, and when curriculum changes, there always is going to be a time frame
Yes.
where the old is in place and we're transitioning to a new, and you have students who have been on the old expectation and the new. That does happen anytime you do curriculum changes, yeah.
I'm for the science standards. My daughter's taking 7 years of science in high school.
Yeah.
So I get it, but this is not worded well for my purposes.
Okay.
So I have a question with regard to looking at identifying the earth and space standards along with the physics standards to be used in this freshman course. In SPA, you had mentioned that was part of NGSS work because kids needed that for an assessment.
So part of the thinking too, so if we do how it's currently structured, students are required to take 3 years, how we currently have it structured, but one of them must be geophysical. So that means that our students, when they are juniors, are picking chemistry or physics. Some students then are missing some of those standards because of the way we currently have it structured. Some students choose to take physics as well, and they take 4 years or 7 years total of science because that's what they love and that's their thing. But they're taking the content that they're supposed to have into their junior year or before, after their junior year. And so we have students going into an SAT most of the way through their junior year, and they have not been exposed to a quarter of the standards that they need to be exposed to. So that, for me, is an equity issue for students. We want to make sure that they have the content when our state would expect them to have the content. And so that's one of the other reasons why moving those physical standards, making sure all of them are in the freshman course instead of only the geophys is important.
So will that then be a mandate? I mean, how will you make sure the standards are met if a student, for example, elects to take bio and chem and not physics? you know, in some other, is
So they would be taking the physical science course, the biology course, and the chemistry course. At some point, those are the three main courses that they would still be taking. If they want, there could still be a physics course that is a more mathematical-based approach to physics, which would not be the freshman course. So think of it like our ELA students, or students for ELA in ninth grade. There's a course they take that's a freshman course. So they would need to take 3 years, and those courses need to be the physical science course, the biology, and the chemistry. They don't necessarily have to take them in that order. They could take them, if the math component out of it,
right,
they could take it in different order.
If we use the IB example, they could take bio, chem, and then
they could take physics with IB, and that would still.
But they
could still work.
But they could also take
they
2
could
years
also
of
take,
bio.
Yeah, they
again.
could take
IB
biochem,
bio.
and I love bio, so I'm going to take bio for my my SL or HL.
They'll be missing some standards if they do it that way.
So is that something we're going to mandate as part of our policy?
I wouldn't put it in policy. I would put it into the curriculum handbook that they need to take one of each of those courses. It could be honors bio. It could be bio. I mean, there's a
Right,
variety of different courses that they could take, but they need
But
to
how
have the
does that-
biology standards. They need to have physics standards, and they need to have chemistry standards.
So we're going to mandate that they have to cover the course material, regardless of how they do that, whether they take it in a ninth grade science class that is broadly covering all of it, and then 2 other science classes, or whether they have to take chem, bio, and physics at some other point.
We need to make sure that they've covered all those standards. So for me as a curriculum director, the state has expectations of those standards, and we have to make sure they've had access to all of those. And so IB is always unique. It's always unique because of the way that their courses are done. As long as we can ensure, and that's part of the counselor's work too, is to ensure that they've had chemistry access, bio access, and physical science access. Those 3.
Can I get to Member Berninski? She's had her hand up.
Sure.
So I think that gets us back to an issue with IB again. And so I think we're going to have to talk about this a little more, maybe in SPA. But I'm also wondering, you were talking about SAT, and I'm confused about that because I didn't think there was a science portion of the SAT.
State test. Sorry.
MSTEP. Okay.
Is that SAT? MSTEP. Going back to the IB programming, though, because of the way that our geophysical science class is arranged, it doesn't have all of the physical standards pieces. That's really where the IB problem is coming in. Most high schools who have IB have a chemistry, a bio, and a physics class, and that fits just fine into the IB programming. It's us having only geophysical, and it's a very specific subset of the physical standards that is causing some issues.
So here's an example. My son was in IB, and his freshman year he took biology. His sophomore year he took chemistry. And then for his junior and senior years he was signed up for IB biology. So he did get geophys through an online class because it was required. But if
He wouldn't have got physics.
he wouldn't have
Got
had
the
he
physics.
wouldn't have had physics if I hadn't paid for the geophys.
And so some of that is our internal course pathway, because this isn't an issue that's inherent to IB. So I just putting that out there. That isn't necessarily an IB issue.
It could be, though, is what I'm saying. I'm saying it depends on what the student chooses, and what I see this doing, and I hope I'm wrong, is making it so that students don't have as much choice.
And I see it actually differently. I see it differently. So if it goes back to, again, us making sure that we work with counselors, because if they want to take the IB, pick your class, biology class, then as a freshman or a sophomore, then they could take the physical science course. So they don't, I think we're saying.
They're not getting either. They're not
And they don't
necessarily
know that.
getting everything they want.
So these are the same
Yeah.
questions we actually had in SPA. So remember we talked about the kind of limitations, and the conversation included that if this became a freshman course that kids could take biology and chemistry the same
They
year.
could take- they
So
could.
it could open up, so you wouldn't be limited to one science
Correct.
course per year.
Correct.
But I also think.
Do that today.
Yeah, they could do that today.
They can and they can and they can't.
It was
They can and they
can't.
can't. So it depends. If they, once, how it currently is, they can take, like, let's take AP Bio. They can take AP Bio with physics, but they have to have already had bio. And so there are some course requirements right now that are based on math expectations that are not an expectation from the state. That's our own internal expectation for math that does not have to sit there. That's a choice that we're making, that it's a math requirement before you can take a certain class. It doesn't have to be that way. And we are also saying you must take geophysical first. You must, right, it's a pathway. We don't have to keep it in that way, which does, I believe, open up the possibilities. Like we're saying for IB, it could open it up instead of having it be.
So I guess what you're saying is, in my son's case, then he would have taken whatever the new freshman class is going to be.
Doesn't have to be
science
freshman class, though. They
Well,
could take it. but,
And then
yeah.
instead of him taking biology, just regular biology, he would have taken 2 years of IB Bio.
He could have.
So can I propose
Or
something?
physics and bio, or take 2 science classes concurrently.
Yeah, well, I think for some kids that's fine, but that's
It depends on the student.
Right.
So can I propose that the board members, the questions that you raised, if we could get them sent
I
for
mean,
clarification, and
Yeah,
right,
We'd
and
like
in-
to see more pathways
right.
and understand the pathways
Okay,
on this.
and in SPA,
understand the process that's going through.
So in our next SPA meeting, what I'd like to do is look at those pathways, like some school districts have identified. 9th grade, here are your options. 10th grade, here are your options, and all of those pathways. And I think Ann Arbor is a great example to look at, where they've identified pathways for IB and the other ones. If we could bring that kind of proposal along with some of the recommendations for the wording. But I think let's revisit in SPA for another round.
Okay. I'm not sure I'll be able to bring in a completely exhaustive list because there's lots of different ways that
Right,
it could go,
but-
but we could certainly bring samples
give
of
some
how it
suggested
could.
pathways. Yep.
Samples of how it could look.
Yeah, just to make sure the message is clear, I'm supportive of the changes that you're considering. I just am reluctant to make a change in requirements without more details.
I understand.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, they left me popcorn.
All right, we are part 3, finance and operations. Debbie Pias.
The cool stuff, it's not audit.
Oh, sorry.
It's just financial reports.
That's gonna help
Audit
us
will
out.
come later.
Audit was great. Leave it over.
Audit will come later.
Yep, this is the warm-up act to what you will hear in 2 weeks on Tuesday, October 22nd, when Plant Moran will be here, our external auditors, to provide their full detailed report on our external audit that occurred. But what we wanted to do tonight was, we cover the monthly financial statements from September through June in our F&O meetings, our very exciting finance and operations meetings. And we wanted to come here to the board to just take a few minutes to go through the actual results for the general fund for the period ended June 30. So those results were discussed at the F&O meeting on October the 3rd. And Stephanie Trotter, our Director of Finance and Accounting, will now cover some of the highlights. But before she does, there's some things I want you to take under advisement and keep in mind. State budget was just signed on the 30th. It included a foundation allowance formula increase of about $240 per pupil for districts in the basic foundation allowance category. So for us, we had budgeted about $180 per pupil, and the $240 is very welcome. However, she also line item vetoed a couple things that affect us as well. Those things are computer adaptive tests to the tune of $109,000 to us, CTE a line item of about $67,000 to us, and ELL of about $48,000 to us. So there were some negatives in addition to the positives, but the positive 240 we are grateful for, but again, we don't think it's enough. We'd like to see more, as the School Research Collaborative went into great detail about what it takes to educate a kid. We're still about $2,000 short of what that minimum requirement would be. In addition, we're an enhancement millage of about $6 million. For 2019-20, we're in year 4 of a 6-year millage. That millage will come for renewal shortly. It's up to Wayne County as a whole to determine that. But when we do renew that down the line, we'll receive less than we currently are because that legislation changed, and now we're required to share that enhancement millage with the charter schools that are within our boundaries as well. So with that, I want Stephanie to go through the financial statements for the general fund, and I'll have some comments at the end as well.
Thanks, Debbie. Good evening. So this will be a very high-level review, and we'll go over just the major variances, but if you have any questions, please let me know, and we can go into the numbers a little deeper. Will you click for me? Yep. Okay. So looking at this first slide, this is our revenue. We present the 6/30/2018 numbers for comparison purposes. We have our final amended budget, and then our 6/30/2019 actual. Total revenue for 6/30/2018 was $168 million. Final amended budget was $172.4, and our actual came in at $173.4. That's about a $994,000 variance from our amended budget. And the major variances there are in our inter-district sources, which is the funding that we received through Wayne RESA. We had about a $500,000 surplus for Act 18 reimbursements for our paraprofessionals, and then another $494,000 for enhancement millage. The enhancement millage is due to an increase in property tax values. Moving on to expenditures, this is for instructional. Our 6/30/18 actual was about $101 million. Final amended budget was $104.3 million, and actual came in at $103.6. So $779,000 variance from our budget, a decrease. That decrease is due to vacancies throughout the district, lower than expected retirement payouts, reduction in software licenses. Moving on to supporting services. Our actual for 6/30/2018 was $61.5 million. Our final amended budget was $65.9 million, and our actual came in at $64.2 million. That's about $2.5 million under budget, and that's due to lower than expected contracted staffing costs, which includes our janitorial and our transportation services. Workers' compensation costs was decreased, and we had vacancies throughout the district, and also professional development expenses were decreased. This is our other financing sources. So for final amended budget, we budgeted to transfer about $186,000 to our community ed and preschool programs, and we actually transferred about $305,000 to those programs. So this is presenting our expenditures by object level. The previous slides presented expenditures by function level, which is the departments. This shows you what we spent on the money that we spent in those departments. So our actual was budget, or our actual object level expenses were $162.4 million. Our amended budget was $170.4. Our actual came in at $168 million. That's about a $3.4 million surplus, or it's under budget, and that's just due to, in salaries and benefits, our vacancies throughout the district, and lower than expected retirement costs, and then again decreased contracted costs that we spoke about. This slide just shows our expenditures expressed as a percentage of fund balance. So for 6/30/2018, we had a 20% fund balance. 6/30/2019 amended budget, we predicted a 20.2% fund balance, and our actual came in at 22.5%. 15% is a healthy fund balance, so we do have a healthy fund balance. And at this time, we welcome any questions you may have.
Okay. If you can go back to that slide, please. So these are big numbers, and it's hard for people to understand with a expenditure balance our size, 170.4 amended and 168.0 expenditures are actual through June 30th. If you put the fund equity in a household budget, a $50,000 annual salary, 22.5% is a little over $11,000 in your savings account. So if you're making $50,000 a year, you have $11,000 to bridge the gap between when your bills come in and when your payday comes in. Because we're a Michigan public school, our payday doesn't come till October the 20th is the first one. Unfortunately, we have this August 25th pay, the September 10th, the September 25th pay, and the October 10th pay before we get a payday from the state of Michigan. So that leads you to believe that you need a certain amount of fund equity in order to bridge that four payrolls that we have to get through before we get our first state aid payment. So keep that in mind. In addition, 22.5% is healthy, but most Michigan public school districts try and gear between 10 and 15%. Our board policy currently is at 10. I know we had some good conversation about whether or not we should change that policy. But Moody's this year, when we sold our last series of the 2013 bonds, was able to take that fund equity policy increase from 5 to 10% and say that this district is now financially sound, and based on that extended us an increase or a bettering of our Moody's rating. That's entirely due to the fiscal responsibility of the board as well as the administration, and so that's to be congratulated. It's not like it's a ton, but it helps to then allow the bondholders to get interest off their tax-exempt bonds that they're holding on it, and it allows us to then sell bonds and get more for our money, more bang for our buck. So those are some things to keep in mind as well. In addition, this board passed a bond or the initial budget for the 1920 school year that was just under $5 million deficit. So we had included all the negotiated salary enhancements and all the changes that we discussed in June, and that's about $5 million in the hole. So this really gets us to square as we go forward. So some things to keep in mind when Plant Moran comes to talk to you in 2 weeks, as well as you're listening to both national, state, and local discussions about what's going on with budgets that then trickle down and affect Plymouth Canton Community Schools. So thanks very much for your attention. Appreciate it.
Questions?
You have one?
I always have questions.
Why don't you go first?
So just to reemphasize that point around the RESA millage. The RESA millage is we're in our fourth year of a 6-year millage. It's about $6 million a year. So if we look at our fund balance right now, that just barely covers a couple of years before we, or not even 2 years before we get into below our board policies around fund balance, and then gets us into the danger zone there. So ultimately the situation is we've done our best with that money to try to do one-time expenditures, but we've used that money also to help support our teachers and our staff throughout the district, and really to invest that money in the programs that we have that really make a difference, from our student support and from our EL and everything else that we're doing. And this provides that cushion in the potential event that something were to happen like that. We don't have to immediately make those changes. And we're not anticipating that. We believe that the community will continue to support us with that enhancement millage, and we believe that we've been good stewards of those funds.
Thank you. I was just going to ask about that. Thank you for mentioning that. Member Berninski?
So we had a planned use of fund balance to help give more support to our staff, and so I guess what think I heard from you is that this increase in fund balance is sort of making us wash at that point.
Correct.
Okay.
We should be able to have a budget that is, our expenditures and our revenue are very closely matched, instead of having a planned use of fund balance.
Right. So I guess I would support making sure that we don't keep growing that fund balance.
I
So,
don't think that, yeah, agreed. That's not our intention.
Yeah, I hope not.
No. Other
At
questions?
least not my intention.
No,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay.
No, but thank you. This was lovely.
Thank you.
See how exciting this is?
Very exciting.
Next up, we have action item 20-10-16. Consider approval of resolution of summer tax levy, first and final reading. Do you have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to consider approval of the resolution of summer tax levy as the first and final reading. Action items 20-10-06. 16, sorry, 20-10-16.
Second. Second.
Thank you. The motion was made by Member Kehoe, seconded by Member Brooks. Any discussion?
So I'll explain this. This is basically a formal resolution that we have to do every year that basically authorizes us to impose the summer tax levy for our community for 100% of those annual property taxes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussions, questions? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries 6-0. And next we have a discussion. So just a couple of discussion items with regard to some of our learning opportunities that we've talked about. You should have received a meeting invite for October 19th to arrive at Schoolcraft, and the session is between 9 and 12 for our community learning session with Michigan Association of School Boards. If you could please get there by 8:45, just so you can have a little bit coffee and bagels before we get started at 9 o'clock. And the second professional learning that we put on the calendar was November 23rd for Robert's Rules. And Anne, who is the nationally recognized presenter, had a scheduling conflict, and we are not able to get her on the 23rd. So Michigan Association of School Boards will lead that for us on November 23rd, but the presenter is asking for some adjustment in time. She is wondering if we could do 11 to 2 or 12 to 3 to accommodate her schedule. We originally had that whole day open, so
11 to 2 or 12. The earlier is better for me.
No, I'd rather do 11 to 2.
11 to 2? Okay, she would really appreciate that. I think she has another travel commitment that she's trying to work through. Okay.
Same date though, right?
Yep, November 23rd.
11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yep. And as soon as we get the location finalized, I will have Nicole send a meeting invite with all the details. But please put down 11 to 2 on your calendar for November 23rd.
Okay.
The last thing, if you look at your handouts, I put a MASB delegate assembly document. So according to MASB and based on our school size, we get 4 voting delegates to attend the annual delegate assembly that's happening on November 8th at 5:30 p.m. in Acme, Michigan. So I'm looking for volunteers to be one of the 4 voting delegates.
Where is it?
It's Acme, it's near
Traverse
City.
It's a little bit closer to Traverse City. It's also the same time as our annual conference, so if you go there that night, you can actually spend 2 great days of learning.
She's really selling it.
I don't think I can sit in the car that long.
It is November 8th.
It is a Friday.
It is a Friday evening, 5:30 p.m.
I am
What time does
fortunately,
the assembly start?
5:30.
It says 5:30. The voting, I think, starts shortly after that at 6. But the handout I'm looking at, the delegate assembly will begin Friday, November 8th at 5:30 p.m.
It's kind of early.
I know.
I mean, I get out of school at 3. There's no way I could get up there.
5:30 p.m.
Okay. I'm willing to be one of the delegates, but I'm hoping that other members, if you are interested and willing.
I'm interested and willing, but have my in-laws in town,
So
and
am
I can't. And I actually like my in-laws, so I'm staying around for them. We have commitments and plans.
Okay. Any other interests? Mr. Brooks? Member Brooks? Okay. So we have
Thank you, Beth.
2 member delegates, voting delegates.
John may be interested as well, so if you
But
send it out in the email.
Actually, it can't. It has to be voted on tonight.
Oh, I see.
And Nicole will have to verify it through a link that MASB sends her. And that has to be done by October 11th. So
So we
we
have up to 4.
we can have up to 4 voting delegates and 2 alternates.
So is it a problem if you put your name down and then you don't, you find out you can't go?
Is that, it's not a
I
problem.
mean, that's what
I'm-
we did last year. We didn't
Okay,
go.
Yeah, I
but
think we should-
member Lazarowitz is not here, is it?
But we should vote him to
Right,
give him
so
that option. so
I'm
that way
willing
he's
to
not-
be one of them.
He could have
Okay.
that option if he can't, if he could go, he could go. If
Okay.
not, he,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a better way to do it,
because
because that way.
I can't go.
And I know I
You
can't go as well.
and
I can't go.
Okay.
He can't go, so.
So if we vote for you and
Member
Doug and
Berninski?
Kate
Yeah.
and
John.
John.
I can't drive. It's my problem, so.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so we have 4 voting delegates. That's awesome.
Well,
We
just-
need a motion.
Just to be clear, they may not
Right.
all be
Yes.
there.
Right, but, and that's.
We're allowed 4.
We're allowed 4,
So, yeah.
Right.
and we're going to, after we vote on them, we will have Nicole do the formal process, and then we can follow up later.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a motion for this?
Do you have a motion number?
So we need a number. It'd be 20, 10.
10, 7.
17.
Madam President, I make a motion that we consider the adoption of our delegates to the MASB conference, action item 20-10-17. The delegates would be Anupam Chuksadhu, Douglas Brooks, Kate Borninski, and John Lazarowitz.
I will second that.
Thank you. The motion was made by Member Kehoe, seconded by Member McCoyne, and this is for action item 20-10-17 for approval of sending 4 voting delegates to the MASB Annual Delegate Assembly. Any discussion, questions beyond what we've already had? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0.
If you can just make sure that John knows that
Absolutely.
he wasn't voluntold.
Absolutely. Okay. Now we are at follow-up board questions. So in your board notes, you had a listing. So let's go through those. So going through some outstanding items, breakdown of future technology projects by building. That was sent in board notes.
So we provided the breakdown. There were some follow-up questions that we've tried to address, but we have invited the technology department to our work session on October the 22nd, so we can really have an opportunity to dialogue further about the content. So yes, that has been provided, but we can discuss, if any other questions arise, we can discuss those on the 22nd.
Thank you. List of summer school courses that were offered, and we also got that in board notes.
Yes.
Student growth data from Julie and Anthony when it becomes available. Still waiting on that.
That's right.
Explanation of how the master plan aligns to educational objectives as far as equity and closing the achievement gap.
That would be the 22nd, would be both of those questions coming up on the 22nd.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the 10-year facilities plan prioritized by year? It's also 22nd?
Yes.
What activities require specialized facilities and equipment for need in our district?
And that is still outstanding.
We received some great information on that already from the district, and it's really, I'm very pleased to see some of the direction that we're taking on making sure that we close some of that gap on the activities that we're doing. So I'm seeing really good progress with the quality of information.
Yeah, and great questions going back and forth. So. Provide follow-up information regarding the district's implicit bias training on October 28, 29, and that was in board notes.
Yes.
Dynamic plan overall list, what is in process, what has been completed, which items are in the future.
And that should be in Friday's notes.
Okay. And are there, besides the science discussion, which we're going to actually take back to SPA, are there any outstanding questions from today's meeting?
I didn't have any.
I think that was it. Just this
Well, I have,
science.
can I put it? exactly a question. The Senate introduced Bill 41 for the mental health training for teachers back in January the 22nd, 2019, and nothing's ever happened to it ever since. My question really is, can we put any pressure on to get that bill pushed through? Is it the MASB that has to do it?
So we can talk about that at a later time, because right now we're going through outstanding items based on previous board meetings. But if that is an item that you would like to
Yes, because I
discussed.
noticed that people were talking about the
LGBTQ.
thing, so I know we want that. If they're going to do a mental health training for teachers, that should be included, definitely.
So as far as an agenda item for a discussion, why don't we talk about that, and we can formulate a process, because it requires 2 board members to take an agenda item for
Okay.
discussion.
Yep.
Okay.
Fine.
Thank you. All right. I don't think there are any other outstanding questions, right? All right. I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion was made by Member Kehoe and seconded by Member Brooks. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourning exactly at 9 o'clock.